Hello everyone, my name is Oscar Lagrosen and today is a very special day. Today is the first episode of a segment called Conversations with Dr. Stenemo. And without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Stenemo. Thank you for visiting.
Thank you, Oscar. Nice to join you. We talked quite a lot about this project that we're doing together and how important it is that people think about this topic and talk about it. So I'm very happy to join you for this conversation.
Yeah, I'm very happy too as well. And I must say that we have developed quite a strong friendship during the last months. So therefore, it's kind of like the first one that you want to open up to more people. And I guess that you were the perfect fit for this since you have quite an interesting background. So why don't you tell you a little bit more about who you are for the audience who doesn't know?
Yes, so my name is Marcus Stenemo, but I go by the name Stenemo since Marcus is so common in Sweden. And I'm a postdoc at the moment. So I did a PhD here in Uppsala, Sweden. And then I'm doing a postdoc at the KI Stockholm, basically studying heritability of cancer. But my interest and why I'm here is mostly my interest in becoming better at being productive and helping people more effectively. So basically helping people effectively in different ways, including learning, not just by my work.
And for those who don't know what KI means, it's called the Karolinska Institute. And Karolinska Institute is one of the most prestigious. Do you call this university or some other?
Yes, it is a university now.
Yeah. So we got some high caliber here, and I'm very honored to have you as my guest and recurring partner. So, and I think that's common for all of us to, achieve more wisdom, be more productive, and really dive deeper into what can be further explored to enhance our experience. So as you probably see if you're watching on YouTube, we are going to talk about goals and habits. So we'll start with goals. When I say goal, what do you think, Stenemo?
Yeah, for me, I think a goal is something I want to achieve. And when I reach it, it changes my life in some way. It's something that has a meaningful impact for me to reach.
Okay, cool. So we can say that it's some kind of finish line somewhere.
Yes.
And then it kind of like drives your direction towards it, I guess. Sometimes like a North Star.
Yes, I think a North Star is a good, like a guidance for where am I going.
So because I heard like many different sources, like goals are good, goals are bad, stuff like that. So I came to the conclusions like it depends on how you're setting those and also how you're looking at them at the regular basis. So do you have any good practices how you set your goals, if you ever set your goals in a formal way?
So I do set goals both in formal and very informal ways. And for me, as you know, I've also read up on what actually works and then try to look further at what is the actual research, not just seeing trying to see on a deeper level, what is it that actually works? Like you talked about SMART method for making a goal very specific and making it easier to reach by making it more clear, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It's good to make it as specific as measurable as possible in order to not feel too, what can you say, overshadowed by it, so to speak. So
exactly.
Could you like walk us through how you do exactly when you like set in a more formal setting? For instance, like you write like, I want to achieve this and these are the bullet points, or are you following a more interesting template, so to speak?
It really depends on what kind of goal I have. So I think a good example for us would be maybe I should finish a book this week. And then it's very specific, like this is the book I'm going to finish this week, and this is how much time I expect it to take, and this is what time I will dedicate in my calendar. So make it very specific. When am I working on my goal? And is it realistic to make this goal with the time I have set aside for it? So that would be one way of making it a concrete example.
Okay, so you do have some goal setting even when it comes to like books and videos and stuff like that, a little bit more smaller ones, if I understood correctly.
Maybe I wouldn't call it a goal. I would probably call it a task, and I have so many tasks.
Yeah, like all of us do. So
Yes.
that's kind of like the
yeah, I think a
different
goal
words.
is usually quite big, but I think it's important to actually celebrate your small goals as well. Even if a small goal is only book a vacation, it's still something that can be very hard to reach, to actually have a good break from your actual work so that you're more energized coming back. A goal can be very small things or very big things. And for me, most of the things that I've actually written as goals are quite big, but it doesn't have to be. And you should celebrate your small goals as well.
So how do you celebrate your small goals? For instance, like if you have a checklist of maybe like 11 different items, and then you check them all off. Do you have some kind of cool ritual that you do
I guess I
afterwards?
could say I have a reward list, a list of things that there's always more things to watch or more things to listen to. Listening to many podcasts, for example. And I think for me, it's good to have both short breaks. So when you worked on your project or worked on your goal, you need to take a proper break. So that's one way of having a reward throughout the day of now I've been productive, now I need to rest up so that I can be productive in the afternoon, for example. So it can be everything from booking in a fun activity with a friend to booking in other small breaks in your day.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, it seems like breaks are the more natural way
That's
of
one example, yes.
So for instance, and maybe that is a large motivator for
Yes.
achieving tasks faster, so you can like enjoy a more longer break, so to speak.
Yes. For me, it's usually not that long breaks. It's more a case of shorter breaks with a clear, this is what I'm doing for this break. And then this is when I'm getting back to my fun project that I'm motivated to do. But I still need a break from it just to be energized.
Oh yeah. Would you like to, like, just as an aside, talk a little bit about like the fun project, or do you want to come back to it in another episode?
So I have one very fun project that I'm very motivated of doing that is a good example of a project that's beyond my work. So I have a project where I'm making flashcards and then sharing it with a few friends. And it's basically a project where when I have a break, I can work on this project if I have energy. So it's a project that both gives energy and that requires energy when you do it. So that's a very different kind of project from just relaxing breaks. And this project has no specific deadline, has no specific, this is when this goal has been reached. It's more of a, when I have time and energy, this is the project I'm motivated to work on. So that the goal here is not as specific, but in order to solve this, you have to break it down into what is the next goal post? What can I be my set point where I say, this is good enough to share with my friends to then get feedback on, and then to do an iterative process of small goals that you can celebrate.
Okay, so you're every time you feel like you have some time and energy over to like this fun project, you're basically doing flashcards based on a number of different sources that you pile up before.
Exactly.
I guess.
Exactly. So when I learn something new that I think is important for my friends to know, I write it down into flashcards and then try to look up the research on the topic so that I can confirm that this is important information that that other people should know.
Okay, that's very cool, and we'll definitely come back to this way of like storing information and doing
Yes.
more sharing stuff like that. But that's very interesting to touch on that. But before we move on, do you want to like share the link to your latest creation, so to speak? Because then we can like implement it in the description in the show notes if you want.
Yeah, sure. So I should link to my flashcard deck.
Yeah, so everyone can
Yeah, sure.
take
That would
part
be
of
great.
it. Because
Yes, for everyone who is interested, I basically collected flashcards that has a broader interest within the personal development and learning important life knowledge. So
yeah,
I'm
and
not sure.
I can testify that these flashcards they're both like very condensed, and they also bring a very curated list based on among like many books and podcasts, because I know from previous calls that you are you're very eager to dive into more content. So it's kind of like the best of the best. So if you want to get a truly handpicked flavors of the best and the most useful and also most actionable advice, and also some other kinds of life facts good to know, please check out the link in the description and in the show notes. So and I hope we will come back to it soon in the future episodes, because
I'm
that's
looking
very
forward to
interesting.
talking about it.
And but we can say that there's some kind of goal, and when it comes to like reaching it, both in like small scales and large scales, I guess you have different rewards for that. I mean, when you're when you have completed a larger goal, for instance, like a paper or major publication, I don't think you just like take 3 days to rest. So I think you do more elaborate ways to celebrate that rare occasion.
Yes. Yeah, it's for me, I think reaching the goal is usually the reward in itself. But of course, it's important to celebrate extra for your big accomplishments as well.
Yeah, actually, I think so too. I mean, often it's like someone sets a goal, but if you don't like the process, then it's kind of like demotivating when you're like actually in there and trying to like make progress on it. I mean, my
exactly.
conclusion is basically it has to both be somewhat satisfying in the moment, but also more satisfying in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to see that you're getting closer to your goal. So really see that I'm getting closer every day to reaching this big goal that I'm looking forward to reaching.
Yeah, exactly. So and I also talk in the recent blog post about like 2 different kinds of goals, because I noticed that some goals are more like, for instance, if you want to do a very big restructuring of particular places or furniture and stuff like that, it doesn't like end the outcome. For instance, everything should be at this place in somewhat fashionable interior, and then it's like, okay, first we're going to move this and then we're going to move that and stuff like that. So this one is more like project based. So I call it more project driven. But then we also have other goals. For instance, like running a certain distance, or lifting a certain weight, or learning new skills and stuff like that, which I call like more habit driven. So do you make any particular difference when it comes to these kinds of different big goals, so to speak?
So for habits, for example, then it's more a case of having a clear routine of either you have a reminder, for example, in your calendar or in your to-do list, or you can even have an alarm that this is the time when I'm going to do this thing. And it can be any routine or any kind of habit, small things or big things. Just reminding yourself that, yes, for 15 minutes today, for 15 minutes, I want to do this specific task to make small progress on this specific project.
Yeah, that sounds very same that I do it. So how do you do with like project driven? Because you have these small outcomes, but then it has to at some point during like the weeks and months, stuff like that, check back to like big goals. Do you check back them very regularly or just like weekly? See like, okay, these were like, for instance, the projects that I've done, and now I can like check them off and enjoy a very juicy reward of seeing the goal post even closer, so to speak. Do you have some kind of like weekly checkup or even daily checkup or maybe monthly
So for
checkup?
some goals that are daily routines, so I have some specific routines that I try to do every day. Those will show up in my to-do list or my calendar every day to remind me that, yes, this is the time today that I'm going to do this specific task to reach this specific goal.
Oh yeah. So I guess that the reminder tells you like, okay, I'm on track,
So
and
those,
then I can get a little bit more closer to the future reward.
exactly. So for my daily tasks, that is quite clear. And then for my more long-term tasks, it's a case of either having a reminder monthly or even sometimes weekly, but mostly it's more of a thing that show up in my to-do list when it's a relevant time. So I set a reminder to myself that on this day, for example, on Saturday, I will work on this specific task that is related to this bigger project.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. So before we move on to habits, which will constitute like the next part of this episode, I want to ask you like your opinion of goals in general. It's like, because I found that some people really like their goals, while others like forget the goals, focus on like systems instead and stuff like that. But I'm kind of ambivalent on this. I think you have kind of need to have both in order to both get a sense of direction, but also to be sure to make it pleasurable in the moment. So, and also I'm not really a big fan in terms of like the more binary distinction, like, okay, either goal every time or no goal at all. So how have you solved this dichotomy of goal setting?
Yes, you highlight a very big challenge with reaching your goals and, well, doing things that you find meaningful when there are so many distractions. And that is that it's not enough to just set a goal. A goal written down isn't enough for most goals, unless it's an easy goal where you're very motivated. You also have to find like meaning in the goal or some kind of expecting something positive after reaching your goal, and then also to be okay with finding the motivation to actually taking these hard steps, both in the beginning and when you have setbacks. And just having a goal is not enough. It's important to, for example, you can have some kind of accountability. For example, having a friend that you tell, I'm going to read this book this week, and if I do not reach it, I will tell you that I have failed. And just telling someone that this is your goal, it makes it much easier for you to see that it's meaningful, that I should not postpone doing this because I have an accountability towards this person. I usually refer to this as an accountability buddy, a person that you tell what your goal is and when you're going to reach it. And by having this accountability towards this person, it's usually easier to find you find more.
So I guess it's more when you have a very close friend that is also kind of dedicated, and you can like help each other. Okay, I can review your goals, you can review mine, and together we elevate ourselves.
Yes, exactly. So you find it's very motivating to have an accountability towards yourself via this friend.
So I would actually admit that I don't have such an accountability partner yet, and that is probably something that everyone should at least aim for. If always find that some goals might move a little bit slower than others, to actually be more public about it. And
for a
I
goal
think
that
like,
is not, so good.
Yeah, you can do.
For a goal that is not something that you're passionate about, where you don't find meaning every day, on a day when you're sad or on a day when it's rainy, it's very hard to go out running if your goal is to run every day and is running today, it's good to have another person that you're running with that also is there suffering with you, or another friend who you will tell the next day that I have ran every day, even the day that it was raining.
Yeah, so that's probably why most elite performers have coaches who can like track them, not only to
Exactly.
like get better, but also to make sure that they're actually doing it, because of the more embarrassing action of actually telling them that this one was not completed in terms of the daily streaks and stuff like that. And maybe it should be more like, maybe all of it should be more like public in general. I don't know if social media is not the right platform, but if you are more, if you want to like expose yourself more to others, like accountability, for instance, like I want to reach this, and then I like make for instance, like daily reviews, weekly reviews, or probably monthly reviews would be more of a good, better cadence. That it could maybe have the same effect too. Or do you think that it would be a larger impact for closer relationships? I'm just trying to think like for everyone who doesn't or aren't fortunate enough to have these accountability partners, or have friends who are equally motivated, how they can kind of like find their own partners.
Yeah, I think there are different ways. That it's interesting how being your own boss is very challenging for people, because in many cases your boss is your accountability partner. It's the one that you tell, I'm going to reach this, and if you do not reach it, there's usually a very clear punishment or some pain in failing to reach your goal. And if you succeed greatly, there's usually some type of reward that you can see in the distant future that is very motivating. So when it comes to your own goals, you have to be your own boss. You have to make it painful to fail. You have to get a reward if you achieve your goal with highest remarks. And you are the one setting the bar for how hard it should be and how much time to allocate to this specific project. And it's important to not be your worst boss, but you should try to be a good boss that actually gives you a reward when you reach it, and to give yourself breaks. And another thing that you can do is to find a competitor that is doing something that you consider to be very hard to do, but you want to be better than them. And
oh yeah.
for some people, this can be very motivating, to have someone to strive towards becoming as good as, or competing with them even. And you can compete with yourself as well. I read a book in 1 month that was 500 pages. Now I'm going to read 2 books next month.
So I think we can conclude that it's very important to have some kind of like an open dialogue on the progress and making it visible, both for yourself, but also even better for other people as well, in order to make it happen on the better and more quality.
Yes.
So
and another thing is, of course, to make your environment ideal for yourself. So reminding yourself that in order to reach this goal, I have to make the environment work with me, not against me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a core tenet that I'm going to touch upon multiple times in various blog posts and videos. But I want to talk about habits for a second. You mentioned that you wrote out like specific time, specific situation when you done the habit. Could you tell a little bit more about how you set habits and follow them through to completion?
Yes, sure. So, for example, with this project with flashcards, I basically have that for the first 15 minutes of productive energy in the morning, after my morning routine, I'm setting aside 15 minutes to really work on this specific project. And that is at the highest on my to-do list, that this is what I'm doing every day. And then everything else, unless it's urgent, will come after these first 15 minutes. That is dedicated to this goal.
Okay,
so that's a habit that I basically have in my to-do list, that it reminds me that this is when I'm going to start. And I always have the same morning routine. So it's very easy that this is just the last part of my morning routine, basically.
Yeah, so I guess that habit of placing the most important thing and doing some special behavior for it makes it more
Mm,
easy to imagine yourself in the best position to tackle this challenge, I guess.
exactly. And another example of a habit is the last thing in the evening before going to sleep, which is to dedicate a specific time every evening to read. So when I have too little energy to be productive, I dedicate the last time to learn instead.
Oh yeah, yeah. That it's much easier to consume than create sometimes. So it will be a very good fallback habit, stuff like that. Are you very regular when it comes to the reading and the reading times, or does it happen that okay, now I have to schedule that party, so I need to do the reading either not at all or before what I'm usually doing or after, stuff like that.
What's a good
Adjustments happen, I
Mm.
guess.
These habits are good examples of if you have a high priority goal that you're motivated to do. For me, that is easier to work on first thing during the day, while a goal that is not urgent, for example, reading every day, that goal can be set aside on days when I'm too tired or I have other activities that are, I have enough energy to do some other higher priority things. So then I will do those things. So this is rather than doing meaningless relaxing, I will do this more motivated, something I'm more motivated to do in the evening when wasting my time.
Yeah, because I've heard in from modern neuroscience that there is kind of three phases in the day. The first phase is like 8 hours, and then you're more likely to go through stuff that have more resistance to you, like general stuff that are harder or more stakes. While in the evening, it's better if you have like more easier habits and stuff like that. And I guess that you're kind of incorporating the schedule, like okay, now that I have most energy, I'm doing this. So basically allocating habits according
Exactly.
to energy.
Another good example of a habit that's very easy to do is to play badminton at a specific time every week, where you have to show up because other people are there depending on you, so that you cannot be late because then they have to wait for you. So that's a very good example of accountability, where no one thinks of it as an accountability buddy, but your running partner or your sport team is a good example of you will show up because everyone is expecting you to.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can't really have that kind of an excuse as you would
Yes.
to yourself and stuff like that. And it's funny that you mentioned badminton, because I know that you do badminton a lot. It's like twice or three times a week, right?
3 times per week.
And I recently played badminton with my family when I was there, and it's very fun. I mean, it's so like fun with terms of like endorphin kicks and having very good laughs and stuff like that. So I get now why you are very passionate about this. It's kind of like a relaxing thing after like spending multiple hours and multiple sessions in either a flow or deliberate practice. So to then like get up and move and yeah, basically have some fun that the balls are in various places.
Yes, I agree. It's very good break from sitting in front of the computer all day. And it's a very good way of both socializing and getting your heart pumping.
Yeah, so there are multiple benefits, stuff like that. And for me, it was kind of a rookie in tennis. Badminton for me is quite like easier, or rather less barrier to entry. So I guess like many people who are not like um, what can you say, not really familiar with tennis might try badminton out if they want to have a very nice sport together. Also, paddle is quite popular nowadays, I guess.
Yes, I think that one is a good introductory sport as well for racket sports.
So what's the difference between paddle and tennis? Of course, there might be different, but for it's like paddle and badminton, it's like badminton but with a round ball.
Yeah, I would say that it's a more friendly sport. It's been designed specifically to decrease the risk of hurting yourself. So paddle has many of the fun parts of both squash, tennis, and badminton, and tennis, but it has removed some of the biggest dangers for hurting yourself.
Oh yeah. So so I'm more motivated to play it now when it sounds like it's an easier way to structure that exercise. But back to habits. How often do you like reprogram multiple like habits that you want to like instill automatic? For instance, like doing a particular thing or having a particular posture and stuff like that. Have you recently done that? And if so, how?
So I try to constantly work on myself. And whenever I think, oh yeah, I should implement this, I will always write it down in my to-do list to evaluate this specific new thing that I've learned. And I cannot think of a good example on the top of my head.
Yeah, I see. So I can probably, because something that I'm working on right now is like adjusting my jaw. I recently have, not recently, this was for 22 years, a quite tight one. So I went to the chiropractor and she recommended me to like put the tongue in the right position and basically do some other kinds of exercises in order to loosen it up. So this is what I call an all the time habit. It's like a habit that you have to keep track of all the time. And by the time, so we recorded this video well in advance, but when it's released, you will see an article in which I discuss further these kinds of all the time habits, which would more be in the terms of alignments and stuff like that. Have you experienced with some habits that's like, okay, now I have to do this like all the time, for instance, like posture, for instance, like breathing, stuff like that? Or have you got all this figured out already?
So I think it depends very much on your specific. How hard is it for you to find this motivating? How hard is it for you to remember to do this? If it's something where it's very hard to remember it, I would set a reminder, and it could be a reminder that is every day at this specific time, or even several times during the day. If it's something that you have to change, changing a routine is one of the hardest things you can do. And then it's okay that for the first week that you're doing this change, have many reminders, talk with people about it, have a calendar event that shows up that today I'm doing this specific thing. So there's many ways that you can help yourself to remind yourself what you actually want to achieve. For me, I cannot think of a good example.
So I guess that when it comes to changing routines, you're more inclined to use like reminding triggers and stuff like that. And that's actually quite good because yeah, when it pops up and you're naturally inclined to look it, then you might say, okay, now I have to do this until it's automatic, I guess.
Yes, I think that's a good example of how you should do it.
Yeah, nice. So I think we covered some good ground in terms of goals and habits, and I'll definitely follow up with habits at some point because it's quite a lot of things to unpack, so to speak. But we're having some multiple weeks ahead in which we will both like tackle a specific topic in detail and maybe drift off and then come back and stuff like that. And I hope you found it very useful and helpful to hear us to chat a little bit about it. So did you like this conversation?
Yes, it was really nice.
Nice.
I liked it a lot. And it's good to really, like, the Feynman technique. It's really good to not just practice what you preach, but actually preach what you practice so that you remind yourself, why am I doing it the way I'm doing it? Is this the best way I'm doing it? And to remind yourself, what steps can I change? Or just what other things should I be thinking about? Just solidifying your own thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's a very good loop, so to speak. Practice what you preach what you practice, try to explain what you practice in order to get it more firm ground, so to speak.
Yeah, simplify your explanation. That's really the Feynman focus. That you should be able to explain it to a 5-year-old in really simple terms. This is how a goal is reached.
Exactly. So with that, I want to say thank you very much, Stenemo, for taking the part of this premiere episodes, and we'll hear from each other next week. And for those who are listening and watching, I want to say thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see each other soon.